Y'all, third quarter, when we're all pass happy, boop, 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 boop. Guess what Tom Brady does? Tom Brady agrees with your boy. The Lions should be running the ball with David Montgomery. I'm pretty sure the exact words that Tom Brady said. Oh, yeah. And those of you that want to blame the refs, shut the freak up. Lions been getting hosed for decades, man. Stop trying to blame the refs, dude. Be better than the refs, Dan Campbell. Be better than the refs, Dan Fool. He's a Dan Fool.
Cause I got the heart of a Lions fan. All good, no quit. That's who I am.
What is up? What is up, folks? Detroit Lions fans, here it is today. This is the morning after, or the afternoon after, or the 3 days after, depending on when you watch this. This is the podcast with me, Mike Vanderpool, aka Heart of a Lions fan, doing a recap of the Detroit Lions versus the Los Angeles Rams. Holy smokes, folks. I'm going to just freaking come out and say it. Well, let's set up what this podcast is, right? So I'm going to look at the Detroit Lions versus Los Angeles Rams game. What I would argue a very winnable game against one of the best teams, if not the best team in the NFC. Detroit Lions had the potential to win, but as usual, some dumb decision-making by our fearless leader, Dan Campbell, I'm going to argue is what cost us this game. So we do a 5 points of blame. Win or lose, it's basically like, the whole, what do they call it, game ball type thing. But this is 5 points of blame that's going to go to reasons, people, why we lost against the Los Angeles Rams. So we're going to do that. Definitely do that as part of this whole thing. We're not even going to talk about the playoff picture because right now I don't even care, right? If it's out of our hands, I don't even care. Ifs and buts, candy and nuts, Chicago wins, Chicago loses. Now Green Bay doesn't have Parsons. Who knows, man? Who knows? And even if we do make the playoffs, here's the reality, folks. If we make the playoffs, if the Detroit Lions make the playoffs, do you know what's going to happen the first round? We're going to go to Green Bay. We're going to go to San Francisco, or we're going to go to Seattle, and we're going to get mollywopped. Because this team and its fundamental problem is Dan Campbell. And Dan Campbell can't help himself. And we've seen it time and time and time again. Dan Campbell cannot help himself. He's a degenerate gambler. He doesn't know how to call an offense, and he's barely capable of leading people at this point. Based on some of the body language on the sidelines, especially from somebody like David Montgomery, who I would argue did enough for us to win, but only was on the field for basically one drive and one play, I think he might lose this team. I think Dan Campbell is being found out right now that he's a good rah-rah guy, but when it comes to actually execution, not so much anymore, right? His fourth down magic is gone. He doesn't seem to be able to inspire his team in the moments. Dan Campbell looks lost on the sidelines. There it is, folks. I'm going to say it. 5 points of blame. I'm going to have a real hard time not attributing all 5 points of blame to Dan Campbell. Now, before we get into the 5 points of blame and the reasons, because I'm going to go and look at the play-by-play. I want to actually look at the actual plays to talk about this, because people come at me on YouTube and on the Facebook and like, you're just an idiot. You're this and you're that. And you're not a Lions fan if you're angry at the team. Come at me however you want, folks. I don't really care. I'm here and I'm going to stay here and I'm going to be who I am as a Lions fan. And if that means I'm irritated when we lose, then I'm going to be here and I'm going to be irritated when we lose. But I'm going to give you the details on why Dan Campbell is to blame for this loss. But first, we got to talk about Dan Campbell and the nickname that I've chosen for him. So if you know me, if you followed me for a while, you know I'm like the king of nicknames, right? Jimmy Handshake for Jim Schwartz because of how he behaved with that handshake with Harbaugh, right? That stuck. Matt Derry still uses it today, right? Ben 2Q Johnson, and Bears fans, you're going to find out. But now, Dan Campbell, I'm probably being too harsh, so I might walk this back here today, but I'd love your opinion on it. I'm calling Dan Clown Show Campbell because it's kind of like a circus right now. It's a circus and it's the same routine over and over and over again. It's like 20 clowns running out of a car, running in a circle and not actually getting forward and making any progress, right? It's a little hysterical, a little absurd right now, aka a clown show. Now, that may be a little rough because Dan Campbell has done so much for our team. Dan Campbell has done so much for our organization, right? We have a winning team under Dan Campbell. And that is very, very, very valuable for us as Lions fans. Let's not get it twisted here, right? Like Dan Campbell, the talent that Dan Campbell has been coaching has also been responsible for bringing us to this point here where we actually have a team that is above 500 for 3 years in a row. When's the last time we had that? 90s? When we had a really great running back? So-so defense? Okay offensive line that got decimated by injuries? Is this 91 all over again, folks? That's the question I'm starting to ask. So, with regards to Dan Campbell's nickname, this is what I'm thinking, right? I kind of like Dan Clown Show is too much. That's too much emotion and vitriol in the moment. That's coming from me. But I do like this Dan Fool Campbell. Like he's a Dan Fool. Dan Fool Campbell. I really like that one. And I'm starting to like, after listening to Dan Campbell and his podcast, like Dan Marinelli Campbell, because he's repeating the same stuff over and over. He might as well, his whole clean it up and we will, might as well be like, get a shovel and dig it, right? But I think that Dan Fool Campbell or Dan Foolish Campbell might be what sticks here. Dan Clown Show is my vitriolic one. I'll dial that back because Dan Campbell has done some really good things for this organization. But where the Dan Fool has really failed us is here. And I'm going to share my screen here. Those of you on Facebook, I'm sorry, you're not going to be able to see this. You'd have to go over to the YouTube channel to check this out. Dan Campbell really has failed us here within the play calling. So let's just go ahead and look at this game yesterday. We will then also harken back to some of the previous games where we've seen some very similar things, going back all the way to our best chance at a Super Bowl, the playoffs in San Francisco a few years ago. So first drive of the game, we have a missed field goal to end it. Jahmyr Gibbs, 4 yards. Jahmyr Gibbs actually started out okay here. We were really pass heavy out of the gate. The run by Gibbs that was called back on a penalty by Sewell. I mean, that really killed this drive for us. We ran Gibbs for another 2 yards. We had Amon-Ra for 8, again, throwing short of the sticks as we continue to do here. But there we go, folks. Jake Bates, no good. Then the Rams get the ball. Hutch gets the touchdown. Hutch gets the interception. We get the touchdown. Boom, shalak, lock, boom. Then the second drive that the Lions have, this results in a field goal as well. But here's the thing that's interesting, right? We have the first, we throw a short pass. So we come out swinging and throwing. David Montgomery up the middle for 2 yards. Okay, cool. Another pass to Williams for 25 yards. J-Mo had a freaking amazing game. J-Mo and Amon-Ra. Who cares about Tesla? Who cares about freaking Khalif? Who cares about TK when you've got J-Mo and Amon-Ra getting open like they were in this game? Then you have David Montgomery for 5 yards. Then you've got David Montgomery for 10 yards. Then you've got the pass opening up. There's a lot of play action in there. And then you've got David Montgomery for 8 yards, David Montgomery for 2 yards, David Montgomery on that drive. What do you have? 6 carries, I believe, and averaged 5.2 yards a carry. And we never see him again until the very end of the game when we're in desperation mode and he touches the ball one more time and it's a touchdown. So this is where I have the biggest problem. People are going to be like, oh, the defense. Dude, our defense is trash, bro. Our defense is trash. We're overpaying for Aleem McNeil. We're probably overpaying for Hutch. We got draft picks that aren't performing. We got DJ Reed, free agent, who, what in the frick was that dude doing? We got Amik, who's fallen off a cliff. We got players that are hurt. Like this defense, if you're going to rely on your defense to do anything, then you're a damn fool, especially this defense. The problem is here, when we get into the second half of the game, here we go. Here's another pass. Gibbs for 3 yards, Gibbs for 2 yards, pass. Okay, quick score there. Then we get the Rams to punt. Sweet. One time they did it. Here we go again. Gibbs for 2 yards. Right, here we go. Incomplete. Gibbs for 2 yards. You're going to pick up a pattern here. Gibbs for 2 yards. J-Mo having a day, right? And then there's the Rams with the field goal, and then Rams with another field goal. Lions defense did enough in the first half, obviously, to keep us in the game. And then here we go. This is now the third. Where's this half? Okay, so this is it right here. This is the first half, right? Or the second half of the game. This is so ridiculous, right? So ridiculous. Gibbs up the middle for 5 yards. Okay, that's cool. 2nd and 5, penalty, offensive holding. Why in the frick is Guy Ritchie in the actual game? I think that's a good point there. Campbell is in over his head 100% right now. Thank you, YouTube comment. Why in the absolute F is Ritchie in the game right now? But he comes in for one play as offensive holding. So even when Gibbs was doing well, our offense just craps out, right? And here we go. This is okay, right? This is the penalty hurt us here. All right, fine. And the Rams score a touchdown. And I believe at this point, I don't know, it doesn't actually give us the score. But the game is still really close here. And then this is where we have the problem, right? 3 plays, punt. Here we go. The deep middle pass to Williams. I love the play. I love the idea. Just not right there. Just not right there. Just not right there. And then there's the sack, and then there's incomplete to Gibbs, and there we go. This is the place where the deep shot hurts us because we should have been using David Montgomery here, right? And here it is. Rams score a touchdown. Game's completely flipped. Another 3 plays, another 3 yards. Gibbs up the middle for 2 yards. Williams for 1 yard. Amon-Ra, incomplete. And then here we go, another punt. And then 3 plays, Rams punt. We're still in decent standing here. And then we're going to go ahead now and more punting. Incomplete to David Montgomery. So David Montgomery did see the field again here. That's awesome. But why is it not a handoff, right? Deep middle to Raymond for 20 yards, sweet. 1st and 10. Why are we not running Montgomery up the middle? Why are we not using Montgomery like we did in that first play of the game? Like, it makes absolutely 0 sense. Gibbs for -1 yard. Gibbs for out of bounds for no gain. Gibbs for -3 yards. Like, this drive right here, whenever this was, right? 1st and 10, Detroit 34, the start of the 4th quarter. This is where we lost the game. Actually, probably before this, right? Because our offense can't sustain drives. And when they do, they can't score. I mean, yeah, we scored 34 points, but we had 4 possessions where we didn't score touchdowns. And the difference in this game, if we actually go back and look, and here's our touchdown, right? What happened here? I think this was pass, incomplete to Gibbs. Gibbs does get us 15 yards there. Gibbs in the passing game did really, really well. Gibbs in the running game did absolutely horrible, right? So here we go. Let's go and look at the actual box score, right? Look at Jahmyr Gibbs had 13 carries for 38 yards. His longest was 6. Yet we still continue to give it to him. David Montgomery had 7 for 32. I believe his average ended up being under 5 yards per carry, but his 6 yards per carry was 5.2 on that one drive in the first half. The difference here, look at this. This is the difference in the game. You can talk about the defense, you can talk about everything else, and yes, the offensive and defensive lines are part of the equation here, but you had freaking 15 attempts for 78 yards, 11 attempts for 71 yards. Don't figure out those averages. The difference in this game was the Rams were able to bust up the middle on runs, create short 2nd and 3rd downs, and that's why they were able to be successful in the pass game. We were able to be successful in the pass game when we were able to do that with David Montgomery, and then Dan Campbell, just like he does multiple times this year, just like the Lions did in San Francisco 3 years ago when we had the lead, 2 or 3 years ago, whatever it was, when we had the lead in the playoff game, Dan Campbell decides to not use David Montgomery. And the shot of David Montgomery on the bench, I'm pretty sure David Montgomery's over this nonsense. Yes, Jahmyr Gibbs is the best player, running back, all-purpose offensive weapon on this team. But Dan Campbell has failed consistently to put him in a position to win. Dan Campbell is the problem here, folks. Dan Campbell may be a great coach, but he's not a good offensive coordinator, and he's losing, I think, a little bit of the team. I mean, I think they're still going to believe in him and buy into him, but the timeouts are still awful. The end of game clock management is awful. 8 minutes left in the game. We're down by 2 scores, and we're not in hurry up. I don't understand what Dan Campbell is doing, but I know this. Dan Campbell is incapable of learning a lesson and adapting and making a change. Dan Campbell is a fool. because a fool is a person who is incapable of learning. I'm a learning scientist, right? That's my job. I'm a teacher. I'm an instructional designer. I know learning science. Dan Campbell continues to repeat the same mistakes over and over and over. And that's why my 5-point play, I'm giving all 5 to Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell is the reason we lost this game. 100%. This was a very winnable game about what some people are calling the best team in the NFC. And Dan Campbell's decision-making kept us from winning this game. You can call me a hater. You can call me a fair weather fan, bandwagon fan. You can say, oh, I'm just toxic and I'm clickbait and I'm always negative. I'm not. When we win, I'm happy. When we lose, I'm trying to figure out why. And why we lost this game is 100% right here. You've got a running back that can pound the rock and drive it up the middle and put you in a better position for second and third down. And Dan Campbell refuses to use it. This game was lost and we scored 0 points in the third quarter, folks. Do you realize that? This offense scored 0 points in the third quarter. And the Rams scored 17 points. Eerily familiar to San Francisco. So Dan Campbell may be the player or the coach that can get us over the hump. But time and time again, Dan Campbell cannot get out of his own way. And Dan Campbell is the reason that we will probably never win a Super Bowl. I'm going to say it. I haven't seen anything from this coaching staff that proves to me that they're capable of learning and growing. I haven't seen anything from Brad Holmes to prove to me that he can actually get out of his own way in free agency in the draft. DJ Reed is straight garbage right now. And I know he was hurt, but he's straight garbage right now. Isaac Tesla, what the freak is that dude even on the team for? And why did we trade up for him when there was offensive line needs? Why is Miles Frazier, Dan Campbell? Why aren't you going over to freaking Shep? Hey, Colin is crappy. Get him out of the game. Let's freaking keep Frazier in there. This is insanely ridiculous. This team is actually better than its record. Oh, let's do this. I wanted to do this. Let's go. Detroit Lions schedule. Let's take a look at this here, right? So we've got the Packers mollywopped us early on. That's fine. We've destroyed the Bears, beat the Lions, beat the Browns, or beat the Ravens, beat the Browns, beat the Bengals. Chiefs clobbered us. We beat the Bengals. Poor Patrick Mahomes. 1-score game, 3 points versus the Vikings, right? 1-score game against the Eagles. 1-score game against the Packers. 1-score game against the Rams. And guess what I've heard as somebody who knows nothing about anything over and over and over again about 1-score games? 1-score games is on coaching. I'm going to say this for the last time today, at least for the next 5 minutes till I go check my comments and reactions over on the Facebook and the YouTube and the TikTok. But Dan Campbell is the problem. Dan is a fool because he doesn't know what he's doing. And it's not going to get any better, Lions fans, because I've seen zero evidence that Dan can get out of the way of his own ego and actually do what needs to be done and run the ball when he needs to run the ball with David Montgomery. So 5 points, all going to Dan Campbell. I'm over Dan Campbell, Dan Marinelli, Dan Foolish, Dan whatever. This is a rerun, folks, and I've seen it way too many times, and I know how it ends. And I'm all excited and flustered and shatterpated right now, and I got people calling me an idiot and yelling at me all over the place, and I'm negative and I'm clickbait, but guess what, folks? I'm a mother scratching Lions fans, and I ain't going nowhere. Forward down the field, mother scratchers. I'm out.